Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Want to remind everybody, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There is a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. Every little bit is appreciated. Please be sure to use friends and family if you do. And we're going to talk about the Constitution tonight and the Supremacy Clause and the separation of powers, as a constitutional essay that I wrote up on the importance of knowing. And this is why I say, don't believe me, don't believe the neighbor, don't believe the government, and for crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. And this is embedded in the idea of being able to read in the Constitution what isn't said. And first and foremost, I point out the First Amendment in your freedom of speech and freedom of expression, independently as a single being, it's inherently important. But I am only empowered through the exponential importance of everybody else's right to know as a totality. And that's why knowledge is so important. And then, of course, the supreme law of the land, based on that Constitution, the common law, is based on the spiritual or scriptural law of the society that put that Constitution out. So the essay is going to correlate the essence of the knowledge. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And it's through the providence of His grace that we even have the ability to use a mind in correlation with our heart to guide us into this society with the reality that everybody has a certain liberty qualified by the source of life itself, and no man has authority to interfere with that, minus the consent. This is the separation of powers and the supremacy clause together. So let's get into it. And I'm going to start out with supremacy clause and the separation of powers. It is embedded in the sovereignty of the people. And I'm putting forth this essay as a constitutional call to conscience. And in the Constitution, the framework of the Constitution itself lies a clause often cited but rarely appreciated in its full philosophical depth, the supremacy clause. And that's why I say the Constitution under the 10th Amendment has a certain delegation of powers. And even though it doesn't say it, it extends from the people. So you have to learn how to read those constitutional things and understand what's not written. Just like the 9th Amendment in itself is showing that the so-called rights enumerated in the Constitution are merely a limitation of what actually exists. In other words, there are other things beyond what's in the Constitution exists as far as rights and stuff. And that's what the 9th Amendment is telling us. One of those rights is the supremacy of the people. And it is expressed that the government only is empowered by the consent of the people. So the Constitution and laws of the United States under Article 6 says this Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. This is in the importance of them taking their oath and having the knowledge of exactly what that oath is and all of the elements of the Constitution, not just the 5 parts of the First Amendment, but all of the elements of all of the Constitution. And the judges in every state shall be bound thereby. Anything in the Constitution or laws of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. In other words, anything that contradicts the Constitution in any federal code, statute, state code or statute, or city ordinance, municipal ordinance, anything that is in contradiction to The rights embedded in there and enforced by it are null and void. They have no standing. Okay? This clause is not merely a legal technicality. It is a declarative principle that binds the nation together under one constitutional authority. But to truly grasp its significance, one must understand its relationship to the doctrine of separation of powers, and more critically, to the foundational truth that all power in this republic originates not from the government, but from the people. The Supremacy Clause and its purpose is to ensure that federal law, when constitutionally enacted, overrides conflicting state laws. However, its authority is not unchecked or unbound. It is limited to laws made in pursuance of the Constitution. Any law, policy, or regulation that deviates from constitutional principles is, by definition, not supreme and holds no legitimate power. The clause serves as a protective shield designed not to empower the government over the people, but to empower the Constitution over arbitrary powers. And this is what we see in the administrative courts. They're making their rulings arbitrarily and not in pursuance of the Constitution, treaties, and otherwise. Now, whether that power be in the hands of state officials, federal agencies, or even judges who exceed their authority, when laws are made that contradict the Constitution, they are not law at all in the true sense, and they are usurpations. The separation of powers is designed for liberty, and the founders instituted the separation of powers, legislative, executive, and judicial, not as a bureaucratic formality, but as a structural guarantee against tyranny. No branch was superior to the others, and none could rightly claim the authority to act outside of its delegated boundaries. And yet here today, that's what we have with the administrative courts. They're acting outside of the delegated boundaries, making judicial determinations through their own interpretations, and thereby usurping the knowledge because we're stupid. But even this balance of power rests upon a more profound truth. None of these branches inherently possesses authority. They are agents of the people's will. And this is where I'm going to talk real briefly about the public education system and the fact that we have a public education that is limited by an average of an 8th grade reading comprehension. Again, another point. If you don't have a well-educated population, then you can't have a strong government. It might seem powerful over the people, but itself is weak. It is itself weak. The powers delegated to them are limited, enumerated, and reversible. Again, this is why I spoke about the 9th Amendment. That's your ability and your empowerment to put forth your supreme delegation to amend the Constitution when and if needed. And I call for that. I call for some of the things that I'm talking about here today, things that aren't said in the Constitution, to be boldly stated so it cannot be misinterpreted anymore. And the people do know that the powers delegated in that 10th Amendment do, in fact, come from the people. When the executive becomes bloated with bureaucracies acting with legislative or judicial force, and when agencies rule by edict rather than by consent, the separation of powers begin to collapse, and with it, liberty itself is endangered. James Madison from Federalist number 47 said the accumulation of all powers, legislative, executive, and judiciary, in the same hands, may justly be pronounced the very definition of tyranny. Now, when it comes to the sovereignty of the people, it is the supreme power of the land. And James Madison also wrote in Federalist number 51 that a dependence on the people is, no doubt, the primary control of the government. The Constitution begins with the words, "We the people," for a reason. All legitimate authority flows from the people. The government is not master, but a servant, not a ruler, but a representative. This principle of popular sovereignty is not merely poetic. It is legally and philosophically essential. And when I say philosophical, that's where I'm touching on that foundation of knowledge. When any branch or administrative body acts contrary to the Constitution, they're not only violating a document, they're violating the trust and authority of the people themselves. And it is known as sedition and treason. And the people have not just the right, but the duty to resist such violations. Now, Abraham Lincoln said the people are the masters of both Congress and the courts, not to overthrow the Constitution, but to overthrow the men who pervert it. A call to civic courage in the face of administrative corruption. That's all I'm asking. For those good men and women to stand up and to do so by rightly dividing the word of the truth, by studying to show yourself approved unto God, not under this manual administration and what their rules and procedures are, because that's all corrupt. And again, why I put the importance on learning the definitions of the very terms that they're using against you. Today, many citizens feel overwhelmed by the complexity and reach of the modern government. The rise of unelected administrative agencies, the weaponization of legal interpretations, and the erosion of the checks and balances have led to a deep corruption. This is what Trump is trying to fight. I imagine that's what they profess. And not merely of policy, but of principle. See, their policy really doesn't matter if it's not founded in those principles. Again, stated and emboldened in that Constitution. Yes, the answer does not lie in retreat and despair, which many people will do in their cognitive dissonance. They will retreat to their couch in their comfy home and start slugging down the processed foods and poisonous drinks, watching somebody else's dramatic or comedic life on the boob tube, because theirs is so damn exciting. Because they've given up all their responsibility to the false patriarch to keep an eye out for them. So they hear the lights and sirens outside, they peek their head out and they see their neighbor down the street a couple blocks is getting arrested. What do? They go back to their boob tube. They're comfortable. The next night, the same thing. Lights and sirens. They look out down the block at the other end of the street. They're arresting another one of the neighbors. Same thing. They go back to the boob tube. The next night, same thing. They're arresting a neighbor across the street. Next night, it's the neighbor right next door. When do you think they're going to come to your door? So it lies in rediscovering the Constitution, learning the Constitution, not as a distant relic, but as a living contract between the people and our servants. To reclaim the Republic, citizens must do more than just vote. If you think your vote counts, then make it count. The only way you can make your vote count is by knowing the truth. And they must study and speak in order to have their voice heard and understood so that it stands. They must understand how powers are actually delegated and how these delegations can be retracted. See, again, it's the duty of the people to throw off a despotic government. They must challenge false interpretations of intent and refuse to recognize unlawful authority as legitimate. James Madison, again, a well-instructed people alone can be permanently a free people. Thomas Jefferson, if a nation expects to be ignorant and free, it expects what never was and never will be. Again, if we have an American reading comprehension average of 8th grade, then that's what we should expect. See, the Supremacy Clause should be the heart of every one of us. Knowing that, again, the providence of grace that comes from the Supreme Being and passes through us is the only way that fictional government gets any delegation of authority. So the supremacy clause belongs not merely in law books or courtrooms, it belongs in your heart. It doesn't even need to be stated in that Constitution. Like I've said many times, many years, I've spent fingering people and saying, fuck off, you ain't my daddy. I know better. There's something greater than that. It affirms that the Constitution is supreme, but only because the people are sovereign. The clause is a reminder that the highest law in the land is not the will of rulers, but the will of a free and informed people acting in accordance with justice and liberty. And all you Christians out there, I'm going to put the first scripture in right here with King James Version, Titus 3:8. This is a faithful saying, that I will, that thou constantly affirm, that he who believed in God be careful to maintain good works. And if you think that Constitution is such a great work, then be careful to maintain it by empowering it with your supremacy. And that supremacy is only of the knowledge of it. Being able to read it, learn it, comprehend it, so that you can have it in record in your heart and mind, and even in documentation, as I do. I'm taking notes and I'm writing these essays and stuff so that you know it. Stop believing. This clause is a reminder the highest law of the land is not of the rulers, of the will of rulers, but the will of a free and informed people acting in accordance with justice and liberty. In times of corruption, this truth becomes a shield and a sword. It's a shield against the oppression and a sword for justice. It is a call, not a revolution, but to restoration. You have a republic if you can keep it. John Adams said our Constitution was made only for moral and religious people. And I think it's better said spiritual. But again, same thing, because I'm not religious. I am spiritual, and I believe that same context is there. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. Our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the government of any other. So it's inadequate to people that don't understand it, the lawless, those that don't want to understand it, including any police or administrative authorities or governmental bodies, representatives, governors, presidents. I don't care. Thomas Jefferson said, when the people fear the government, there is tyranny. When the government fears the people, there is liberty. And Benjamin Franklin, upon leaving the Constitutional Convention in 1787, said, you have a republic if you can keep it. How do you keep it? The knowledge. See, the commission of the biblical scriptures that supreme law of the land is supposedly founded on in those principles. It's the moral duty to speak and defend. The moral duty to speak and defend. I'm going to tell you how this relates to multiple scriptures here now, and how to bring the word of God and show that that's what that Constitution is for. See, knowledge rejected brings destruction. And this is Hosea 4:6 of the King James Version of the Bible. My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Because thou hast rejected knowledge, I will also reject thee. Because thou hast not been a priest unto me, I shall also reject your children. This is the importance that I'm trying to get across, to learn this stuff so that you can freely express it yourself to those that have a right to know. And inherently, the most important ones that have the right to know would be your own heir apparents. But yet you slough it off. You don't know it. And you think somebody else in that school, that public education, is going to teach them about it. They're going to teach them how to read it, but they're not going to tell them what it means in any sense. And they can remember it all they want, as that's what that education system does. It's dogmatic in teaching kids to remember, but never use their own thought processes and being autodidactic. If you notice the thumbnail, that's what I mean here. You need to start being autodidactic. Put down the bullshit and start doing your research. The bullshit, I mean the things that you keep believing Don't believe me. Don't believe the neighbor. Don't believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your neighbor. Do your research so you know. Study yourself to work. Study yourself to show thyself approved unto God, rightly dividing the word of truth. A workman not needing to be ashamed to do so. The divine warning in Hosea 4:6 should strike at the heart and tell you of your own civic neglect to your own children. When citizens or people fail to seek understanding, when they refuse to learn the Constitution or discern the corruption in their midst, they suffer the consequences. Like I said, when do you think they're going to come to your door? Not just politically, but spiritually. That's what I'm talking about again when we send our children off to those public education systems and we don't teach them the spirituality because that's what's corrupting us. We pay for our father's sins. Ignorance of truth invites that bondage. The founders knew this and the prophets declared it. The remedy lies in righteous knowledge and action because good work or faith is dead without works. Let's talk about the promise to the barren and the future generations. That's the same thing as the Social Security program, the welfare program. It's a promise to the barren and the future generations, the women and the children that are fatherless. In Isaiah 54, if you read the whole chapter, it starts out with, "Sing, O barren, though thou that didst not bear, for more are the children of the desolate than the children of the married wife, saith the Lord." That's what we're supposed to be speaking out for. That's the imperative superiority of being able to speak out, is because it's an instruction for us already through the biblical scriptures. And 54 is a beautiful declaration that God has not forgotten the barren women, that the brokenhearted and the afflicted. In a nation corrupted by false authority, the barren symbolize those who feel powerless. This is the feminist movement. The women feeling powerless because they don't feel they're equal. You have to understand the power of your role, ladies and gentlemen. And again, you call me misogynist all you want, but I just firmly believe that there are certain societal roles that are incorporated through our nature and being, through our sexes and genders. And there's only two of those. Yet the Lord promises increase, expansion, and legacy. This is also a call to those raising children in these uncertain times, having CPS and the support of police coming in and taking children and tearing down the family foundation like we've been speaking of here lately. And they're bearing false witness. And it's largely in part because of the ignorance of the common man and woman in these families, again. And the children end up paying for those faults. We pay for our father's sins. It's truly hurting our children, not just us. And it hurts our children even more because as the days slip by, so do those liberties. Slowly but surely. And this is why we have to fear not, speak boldly, and build a future rooted in truth. Isaiah 54:13 says, "All thy children shall be taught of the Lord, and great shall be the peace of thy children." Again, Hosea 4 says, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." And as I professed many times, the true benefit then must be the knowledge. And if that's the true benefit, then that's what we're supposed to pass on to our children. Again, the principle founded in the parable of the talents, to go forth and share your talents. And this is why we give up sharing our talents to our children. We don't seek it out. We become indoctrinated into that public education system to just remember certain things and let Papa USA, Uncle Sam, do everything else for you. See, in the scripture, we're commanded to know the truth, but to teach it as well. This is, again, the foundational principle of faith without works is dead. And we're supposed to teach it to our children so that they can build their voice in it. Preservation of a republic is meaningless if we do not prepare those who will inherit. And the authority of false power. Romans 13, King James Version, 13:1, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that are ordained of God. This verse is often misused to demand obedience to any government, but Paul is not advocating blind submission here, folks. Rather, he affirms the true power is from God alone. Again, the foundational principle of the Constitution, wherein the people delegated that power for this very verse. He affirms that true power is from God alone, and any authority that contradicts righteousness is not ordained, but usurped. As such, a corrupt or lawless authority is not to be followed, but opposed peacefully and truthfully with the Constitution and God as our guides. And God's call to speak comes from the womb. Like I've said many times, my favorite verse, Jeremiah 1:5, again, King James Version, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. This is when he ordained you and sanctified thee. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. Before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nation, telling us our duty inscribed if we have taken upon his oath to seek his immutable promise, or his promise to seek his immutable knowledge. And that's exactly the purpose, is speak that truth. And it's a call to everyone who feels the stirring of conscience. That's what I'm asking you to do. Get up off that couch. Get away from that boob tube. You were born for this hour. You were ordained to speak, to stand for righteousness, and to lead. Silence in the face of corruption is not an option. Silence in the face of corruption, you've already made your choice to bow down, to bend your knee. God's word and America's founding documents agree. Liberty demands a voice. And the final declaration is, in order to keep the republic and guard your children, you have to learn to speak the truth and teach it to them. See, the Constitution is not a cage. It's a covenant. It's a republic that is not preserved by passivity. It is kept by knowledge, courage, and moral clarifications. That thing about not believing, doing your research so you know. Let the children be taught. Let the barren rejoice. Let the righteous speak. Isaiah 58:1, again, King James Version. Cry aloud, spare not, lift up thy voice like a trumpet, and shew my people their transgressions. Let them know what they're doing wrong. Listen, if you're taking an oath to uphold the Constitution and you don't know the 5 parts of the First Amendment, then I highly doubt that you can uphold and support that Constitution. That's what you're doing wrong. Somebody put you in office or put you in a position that you're not competent to hold. So again, as Ben Franklin said, you have a republic if you can keep it. I urge everybody to pick up a Bible, the Constitution, and a concise English handbook. Learn what it's saying. Learn what it's saying outside of the box, in between the lines. And learn your power to make a declaration, come forth with petitions, make amendments, It's your authority. You just need to step up and take it. Otherwise, if you consistently keep handing it over to them, they'll use it for their advantage, and they don't give one fuck about your children. They care about theirs. You should do the same. And with that, brings the end of my short essay. I appreciate everybody joining. Please hit the like, share, and subscribe button. Again, there's a PayPal link down there for anybody who wants to share some love. All is appreciated. Please use friends and family if you do. And remember, folks, I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks again. Bye now.